The email came at 7:03 a.m., sharp. Noah Lennox blinked at her cracked phone screen, heart skipping. She was curled on the floor of the hospital corridor, back against the wall, wearing the same hoodie she'd slept in for the past 3 nights. Her mother was still unconscious 2 floors up. The medical bill had passed 6 figures, and the hospital had already warned her, no more delays. She opened the email with trembling fingers. Inside wasn't an explanation, just one sentence. Report to Hamilton County Courthouse by 9 a.m. with valid ID, marriage contract execution pending, non-compliance voids settlement, and beneath it, the signature of J. Golding, Senior Legal Affairs, Rice Enterprises. Her stomach twisted. She didn't even know what Rice Enterprises was, but she knew what that contract meant. A marriage, a deal, a sacrifice. She pulled herself off the floor, teeth clenched, heart in free fall. She had less than 2 hours to decide if she'd sell herself to a man she didn't know, to save the only woman who'd ever loved her right. She didn't hesitate. By 8:47 a.m., Noah stood at the entrance of the courthouse. The building didn't look like it belonged in real life. Polished marble floors, towering glass doors, and clerks who didn't blink when a 22-year-old woman walked in holding nothing but a phone, her ID, and the email that changed her life. "Miss Noah Lennox?" A man in a gray 3-piece suit approached, clipboard in hand. "Follow me." He didn't wait to see if she would. She followed, up the escalator, down a quiet corridor, into a small room that felt more like a board meeting than a wedding chapel. No flowers, no music, no family, just her, him, and the contract. Dorian Elias Rice didn't stand when she entered. He sat still, dark suit perfectly pressed, tie tight, posture regal, and eyes cold. As if this was a merger, as if she was a buyout. Noah paused in the doorway. She'd seen his face before, somewhere in a news article. The youngest CEO to take a tech company public, billionaire before 30. Famously private, famously brilliant, famously unfeeling. He didn't even look at her. "Have a seat," the legal officer said. Noah obeyed. The moment the clock struck 9 a.m., the officiant, a clerk in a black blazer, stood behind a metal podium and began reading from a pre-written page. No ceremony, just terms. "Noah Lennox, do you agree to the conditions as stipulated in Article 3, subsection 7 of the civil marital provision between you and Dorian Elias Rice?" She looked at Dorian. He hadn't moved, didn't blink, didn't care. Noah clenched her jaw. "Yes." The man turned to Dorian. "Do you, Dorian Elias Rice, take Noah Lennox to be your lawfully wedded wife under the terms specified in this agreement?" His response came without breath. "Yes." That was it? A pen was handed to her. Noah signed. Then he did. And with a dry nod, the officiant declared, "Marriage contract executed." Congratulations. No ring, no kiss, not even a glance. Dorian stood and walked out. Noah remained seated for a moment, body stiff, breath shallow, face unreadable. The suited aide returned. Wordlessly handed her a folded envelope. Inside was a single note. "You'll be escorted to the penthouse. Your suite is ready. He will see you tonight." It felt like being airlifted into someone else's life. The private car picked her up minutes later. Security men opened doors without speaking. A driver in a dark cap gave her a polite nod. The car ride through Manhattan was silent, the city roaring beyond the tinted glass while Noah clutched her seatbelt like it could anchor her to reality. Her thoughts spiraled. What kind of man arranges a wedding like this? What kind of marriage doesn't start with a conversation? And what kind of woman agrees to it? The one whose mother might not survive without her. That kind. The elevator ride to the penthouse was so smooth it felt like floating. The doors opened into a home, unlike anything she'd ever imagined. Black marble countertops, high-gloss floors, chrome finishes, spotless windows framing the Manhattan skyline like artwork. No warmth, no welcome, just silence. A woman met her in the hallway, tall, sharp, clearly a house manager. "This way, Mrs. Rice." Mrs. Rice. The title scraped across her thoughts like gravel. The suite she was led to was stunning, larger than her entire childhood apartment. A walk-in closet filled with designer clothes in her size. An ensuite bathroom with a rainfall shower. Gold accents on everything. Still, she felt like a guest, not a wife, definitely not a bride. By nightfall, Noah had changed into a satin robe provided by the housekeeper. She hadn't eaten. She'd sat in front of the window for hours, watching the city turn gold, then silver, then black, all while wondering if she just ruined her life in one swift act of desperation. At exactly 10:42 p.m., the door handle turned. She didn't move, didn't blink. Dorian stepped inside. He wasn't in a suit anymore. His tie was gone. His sleeves rolled to his elbows. The first few buttons of his dress shirt were undone. He looked human, but only barely. He paused a few steps in, scanning the room like he might be evaluating the staging of a property. Then his eyes landed on her. Noah rose slowly, her damp hair curling slightly at the ends, the robe clinging to her. "I thought you weren't coming," she said. His reply was blunt. "I debated it." She arched a brow. "Because I'm not good at this. This, marriage, people, intimacy." Noah crossed the room, stopping just before him. He didn't flinch, didn't lean in, didn't back away. "So," she said slowly, eyes locked on his, "is this the part where you enforce the rights your contract gave you?" His jaw ticked. "If I did, would you stop me?" She didn't blink. "No, but I'd make sure you never forgot it." His expression shifted, just slightly, a flicker of respect, maybe even curiosity. "You're a virgin," he murmured. "Was," she replied without shame. He exhaled. "That changes things." "No," she said, taking his hand and placing it on her waist. "It changes you." Dorian froze. Then he moved, not like a conqueror, but like a man finally giving in. His fingers tightened at her hips, and he pulled her against him with a force that was controlled but raw. His lips met hers like he was starving, like this wasn't part of the contract, like it was the first thing that ever made him feel alive. "Hey family, this is Dr. Phillips. Don't scroll just yet. Before we begin, I want to ask you a favor. If this story grips you even a little, please like this video and drop a comment. Your engagement helps more people find this story. And if this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe by tapping the button below. Trust me, you'll want to stay till the end. We cut this down to the bare essence. No fluff, no dragging, no stalling. Just a full-force emotional story, straight to the point. Let's continue right away. There were no champagne flutes, no friends crying happy tears, no string quartet, just the soft scratching of pens and the sterile hum of an overhead vent. Noah stood beside Dorian in the middle of a private courthouse room where the walls were painted in a soulless shade of cream, the chairs were bolted to the floor, and the clerk read legal vows like a man confirming a shipment. She'd expected the discomfort. She hadn't expected the silence to feel so absolute. Dorian stood perfectly still, hands clasped in front of him. His cufflinks, silver, angular, gleamed as he signed his name beneath hers. No one offered a congratulations. No one clapped. She could feel her signature drying beside his, black ink already binding her future to his wealth, his name, and his rules. When she glanced up at him, he was already turning away. Not even a glance. Just like a business meeting had wrapped, Noah forced herself to hold her posture as the court officer stamped the final page. "Marriage contract is now legally binding," the man said. That was the moment it sank in. She was no longer her own. They walked out of the courthouse in silence. A black car waited at the curb, engine already purring. Two suited men opened the back door. Dorian got in without a word. Noah followed. The door shut behind them, soundless and final. She settled into the seat as the car pulled away. The silence was thick, almost theatrical. He didn't look at her, didn't speak. Noah glanced at him from the corner of her eye. His jaw was sharp, clenched. His wrist rested over his knee, the expensive watch catching stray sunlight as they curved through city traffic. For a man who had just bought a wife, he looked bored. She tilted her head slightly. "Was that everything you dreamed of?" she asked, her voice casual but edged. He didn't respond, so she pushed. "The wedding, I mean." A pause. Then, finally, it served its purpose. Noah scoffed softly. "Good to know romance isn't dead." He turned his head slightly, eyes cutting toward her. "Did you expect otherwise?" "No," she admitted, "but I thought maybe you'd at least pretend." He turned his full attention on her now. Not soft, not interested, but focused, clinical. "I don't pretend, Noah." She met his stare evenly. "Neither do I." Something shifted in his gaze. Just a flicker, but enough to confirm he was listening. The drive ended at a private high-rise in Midtown, the kind of building with a full-time doorman, facial recognition security, and elevator access only granted to those worth more than most countries. Noah followed him out, her steps measured. They didn't speak again as the elevator rose. The car stopped at the very top. Penthouse. The doors opened into a sun-drenched living space that looked like it had been curated for an architecture magazine. Black leather furniture, minimalist lines, a glass wall revealing the full stretch of Manhattan's skyline. It was beautiful, but cold, like everything else about him. "This is your home now," said a woman with a perfect chignon and a clipboard in hand. "Your suite is through here." She led Noah to a separate wing of the penthouse, opened the door to a suite so extravagant it felt offensive. A four-poster bed with silk sheets, a chandelier above a private sitting area, closet organized by color and designer, perfumes she couldn't pronounce, a dressing table she was scared to touch. "I'll leave you to settle in," the woman said, and vanished like a ghost. Noah stood there alone, her entire life reduced to a signature and a skyline view. She showered, not because she wanted to relax, but because the sensation of all this, the marble, the money, the silence, was clinging to her skin like a second layer. Steam filled the bathroom as she stood under the rainfall stream. Still, she couldn't wash off the feeling that she'd just become invisible. She dried off slowly, put on the satin robe that had been laid out on the bed, and sat by the window, watching the city flicker with millions of lives she no longer felt a part of. Hours passed. The city turned orange, then blue, then black. She still hadn't eaten, still hadn't heard a word. At 9:30 p.m., a soft knock landed on her door. She turned, expecting Dorian. Instead, a young staffer stepped in holding a tray. "Dinner, ma'am." "Ma'am." She swallowed that. "Thank you." The tray was placed on the coffee table. Lamb chops, roasted vegetables, a wine glass filled halfway. The staffer left quietly. She didn't touch the food, didn't move until nearly an hour later, when the door finally creaked open again. Her heart jolted. She didn't know if it was fear, frustration, or anticipation. Dorian stepped in. Tie loosened, shirt unbuttoned at the collar. His eyes locked onto her, seated by the window, robe cinched at the waist, legs curled beneath her. "You didn't eat," he said. Her voice was calm. "Didn't feel hungry." He stepped in farther, the door shutting behind him. A pause stretched between them. The distance across the room felt loaded. Then she said it. "So, is this the part where you claim the rights your contract gave you?" His stare didn't waver. "If I did, would you stop me?" She rose, bare feet soft on the rug, walked until they were close enough to feel each other's breath. "No," she said, "but I'd make sure you never forgot it." That did it. Something cracked in his eyes. And then, he moved, hands gripping her waist, mouth finding hers like gravity, had finally won. The kiss wasn't soft. It was heat, power, need, but it wasn't cruel. It wasn't careless. It was real. They didn't talk after that. He peeled the robe from her shoulders with reverent hands, laid her down on sheets so smooth they felt like clouds. His mouth learned her like she was a secret. His fingers traced her like scripture. He didn't rush, didn't command. He explored. When she gasped, he paused, adjusted, tried again. And when she whispered his name, breathless, he froze, like hearing it from her lips made it suddenly real. And maybe it did, because after that, he kissed her slower, sank into her deeper, held her longer, and when she woke the next morning, he was gone. On the vanity, a single note in the same cold script as the wedding directive. "Meeting. Back late. You're free to roam. Please avoid the West Wing." No name, no warmth, just instructions. She stared at it, heart numb. She didn't cry, didn't panic, but something inside her went very still, because she wasn't surprised, but she had hoped. And that was the real betrayal. The sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, warm and indifferent to the fact that Noah Lennox had just married a man who vanished before dawn. She sat at the vanity, untouched breakfast cooling behind her, wearing the same robe from the night before. Her gaze was locked on the folded note from Dorian. Meeting. Back late. You're free to roam. Please avoid the West Wing. She read it again. Then, once more, not because it changed, but because it said everything she needed to know. She had been claimed, but not chosen. The penthouse was quiet as a museum. Noah explored it anyway. Every inch was immaculate. Polished black surfaces, geometric art, not a single sign of the man who lived there. No family photos, no clutter, not even a misplaced pen, as if the entire place had been designed to impress people who would never be invited. She found the library, books lined up like props. She skimmed their spines, most untouched. She found the rooftop garden, precise, manicured, stunning, and soulless. The West Wing was locked, so she didn't bother trying. She didn't see Dorian that night, or the next. The house manager, Celeste, delivered meals with a robotic kind of grace. Polite, informative, cold. On the third day, Noah asked, "Does he always disappear like this?" Celeste didn't blink. "Mr. Rice keeps an intensive schedule." "Right." Noah pushed her plate away. "So I'm just here." Celeste inclined her head. "You're well provided for." That stung more than it should have. Noah smiled sweetly. "Tell him next time he buys a wife, he should try conversation." Celeste said nothing. She didn't have to. By day 4, the robe was replaced with a red silk dress that hugged Noah's hips like memory. She walked barefoot to the kitchen, poured herself fresh orange juice, and sat on the white leather stool at the marble island like she'd been doing it her entire life. Dorian didn't appear, but the security camera in the corner turned, just slightly. She smirked. He was watching. Good. Let him see what he bought. By day 5, she stopped waiting. She began sketching again. She found a blank journal in the study, pulled a charcoal pencil from the drawer, and started to draw, not gowns like before, but armor, redesigning herself, line by line. She left her designs out on the table, on purpose, a silent message. You don't own silence anymore. That night, Dorian returned. He entered through the main hall just past 10 p.m., his steps soft but sure. No tie, shirt sleeves rolled again. His jaw shadowed in evening stubble. He looked like a man who hadn't slept much. Noah was on the rooftop, curled in one of the lounge chairs, wearing one of his shirts, oversized, unbuttoned enough to reveal smooth skin and a sliver of lace. She didn't turn when he approached, but she felt him, the weight of him in the air, the tension coiling between them. "I see you're making yourself at home," he said, voice low. "I live here," she replied. That was fast. I adjust quickly. A beat. Then his voice dropped an octave. "You've been leaving sketches on the table. Didn't know that was a crime." "It's not, just noticeable." She finally turned her head. Their eyes locked. "You didn't marry a shadow, Dorian," she said, quiet but firm. "And I'm not going to pretend I don't exist just because you're more comfortable in silence." He stepped closer. His jaw was tight. "You think you can provoke me into what? Touching you again? Owning you?" She stood slowly, letting the shirt fall just enough to show a hint more skin. "I think," she said, meeting him eye to eye, "that you're terrified of wanting someone you didn't design." The silence stretched between them like a drawstring pulled taut. Then she walked past him. Her shoulder brushed his chest, deliberate, slow, unbothered. He didn't move, didn't stop her, but his eyes followed. He came to her room that night, didn't knock, didn't speak. But when she opened the door, he didn't look like the man who had signed a contract. He looked like the man who had just realized what he'd traded power for. His mouth crushed hers. Urgent, needy, not like the first time. This was different. He didn't lead. He followed. Let her push him back, hands tugging his shirt up, her mouth biting down on his shoulder. He groaned, low, rough, real. She shoved him onto the bed, straddled him, took control. When he tried to flip her, she grabbed his wrists and pinned them above his head. "You don't vanish after this," she said against his ear, voice a growl. "You stay. You hold me." He nodded. And this time, he meant it. He didn't leave that night. He stayed, wrapped around her, silent, but present. She didn't need him to talk. Not yet. But the pattern didn't last. He stayed 2 nights. Then vanished for 3. No call. No message. No explanation. By the 4th morning, Noah was done. She packed a small leather bag, left all the designer clothes hanging, took only her journal, her old denim jacket, and a prepaid phone. No note, no farewell, just absence. She didn't cry, didn't rage. She just walked. Out of the penthouse. Out of the building. Out of the shell she had tried to fill with hope. Because she finally realized she didn't want to be worshipped for one night. She wanted to be seen for a lifetime. And she wasn't waiting around for a man who only knew how to chase silence. The elevator chimed softly as it opened onto the penthouse floor. Noah stepped out like she belonged. Not as the girl who left days ago with heartbreak simmering beneath her skin, but as a woman who had chosen to return on her own terms. The red silk dress she wore hugged her waist, the fabric catching the morning light like fire. Her hair was swept back into a smooth bun, her makeup effortless but sharp. She wasn't here to apologize. She was here to be seen. And this time, she made sure the cameras caught every step. The kitchen was silent when she walked in. 2 house staff froze mid-motion. Celeste and another assistant Noah hadn't met before. She offered a cool smile. "Good morning." Celeste blinked, startled. "Mrs. Rise, we weren't informed of your return. I didn't think I needed permission." A long pause. Then Celeste nodded once. "Shall I have breakfast prepared?" "No need." Noah moved to the fridge and pulled out eggs, butter, fresh spinach. "I know where things are." She cooked like she was reclaiming the space, spatula in one hand, heat licking up the stovetop, music playing faintly from her phone speaker. The smell of real food filled the kitchen. Her bare feet tapped against the tile. And then she felt it. Eyes. From the hallway. She didn't look. Didn't need to. Dorian was watching. Let him. He didn't enter right away. He stood just beyond the kitchen threshold, arms crossed, shirt open at the collar, hair still damp from a morning shower. He watched as she flipped her omelet and slid it onto a plate like it was a performance made just for her. She sat at the island counter, added a sprinkle of salt, and took a bite. Then she looked up, met his stare directly. "Morning," she said, casual as a breeze. He didn't move. "You came back." She nodded. Wasn't done yet. His eyes flicked down, took in the dress, the lipstick, the poise. "You're different." "No," she said simply. "I'm just not pretending anymore." A beat. "You look good." "Of course I do." Another beat. "Then, did you mean to wear that dress in my kitchen?" She smiled, slow and wicked. "Did you mean to look at me like that in your hallway?" His mouth twitched. Almost a smirk. Almost. The tension hung between them like humidity, not hostile, but charged. As if both of them had stepped onto a stage neither was ready to leave. After breakfast, she left her plate in the sink. Didn't clean it. Didn't tidy the space. Let the evidence of her presence linger. When she passed him in the hallway, her perfume brushed against his jaw. She didn't speak, but her silence was louder than any speech. By noon, she had claimed the sunroom for herself. Sketches sprawled across the glass table. Laptops open. Her phone buzzing with responses from boutique fabric vendors she'd researched while away. Celeste brought tea. Noah didn't even look up. "Just leave it there." Celeste paused. "Would you like anything else, Mrs. Rise?" A beat. Then Noah finally glanced at her. Her voice was cool. "Just space. Unless I ask." Celeste blinked, then nodded and stepped back. Noah went back to sketching. This was her world now. Later that evening, she changed into black lounge pants and a crop top that exposed just enough skin to be comfortable and deliberate. She took her tea to the balcony, watched the lights of Manhattan flicker on like stars being lit by command. Behind her she heard footsteps. Didn't turn. Dorian joined her, drink in hand. He said nothing for a full minute. Then, "You're not subtle." "I'm not trying to be. You think dressing like that, cooking in my kitchen, taking over my study is going to get my attention?" She finally turned her head, looked him over, then said, with calm precision, "It already did." His jaw ticked. He sipped his drink, not breaking her gaze. "You're playing a dangerous game." "No," she said. "I'm just refusing to be furniture." Another pause. Then he leaned in, his voice a low hum. "You really think you can handle me?" She smiled. Not flirtatious, not soft, just sure. "I already did." That night, he didn't come to her room, but he didn't sleep either. She heard his footsteps pacing the floors long after midnight. She smiled into her pillow, because for the first time, he was the one restless. The sky was velvet. Manhattan glittered below, alive with movement and light, but high above, on the rooftop garden, everything was still. Noah lounged on a chaise, legs draped over the side, one arm behind her head, wearing nothing but Dorian's white button-down, unbuttoned just low enough to provoke questions, just long enough to tempt answers. She felt him watching. She always did. But tonight, she didn't pretend not to notice. Her bare legs caught the light. One knee bent just enough to show the lace edge of black panties beneath the shirt. She could feel the burn of his stare from the far side of the garden. He stood beneath the canopy of a tall potted tree, jaw set, chest rising and falling like he'd run up 20 flights of stairs. "You wore that on purpose," he said finally, voice rough. She took a slow sip of her wine. Didn't look at him. Wore what? He stepped forward, out of the shadows. His sleeves were rolled again, neck exposed, top buttons undone. His hands were in his pockets, but his eyes? They were all over her. "My shirt," he said, stopping in front of her. "You wore my shirt. I was cold." His voice was tighter now. "You're not wearing anything underneath it." "Wrong," she said, lifting her leg slightly to show him a flash of black lace. "I wore these just for you." A beat passed. Then another, and then he was in motion. Fast, controlled, but unmistakably, absolutely in motion. Noah didn't flinch, didn't retreat. Instead, she sat up, slow and deliberate, letting the shirt slip off one shoulder. "Are you mad?" she asked, tone playful, breath teasing. "Or just finally ready to stop pretending you don't want me?" His hands clenched at his sides. "You think this is a game?" he asked, voice low and dangerous. She rose to her feet, standing chest to chest with him, her voice soft but sharp. "No, I think this is your breaking point." He grabbed her waist suddenly, strong, fast, but she didn't pull away. She leaned in, lips brushing against his jaw. "You don't scare me, Dorian." He didn't answer, so she kissed his neck, slow, open-mouthed, lingering. He shuddered. "You're shaking," she whispered. "So are you," he murmured, eyes closing. "I'm not afraid." "No," he said. "You're hungry." Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was heat, teeth, tongue, years of silence, broken in a single moment of surrender. His hands pulled her closer, fingers gripping the back of her thighs as she wrapped herself around his waist. He backed her against the garden wall, palms spreading across her hips, pressing her against the stone like he wanted to anchor her there forever. She gasped against his mouth as he lifted her effortlessly, her legs locking around him. The shirt fell open, exposing soft, warm skin to the night air. To him, his mouth moved over her throat, her collarbone, the top swell of her breasts. She arched into him, demanding more, giving more. Not yet. He carried her through the rooftop door, down the private hall, and into her suite without breaking the kiss. She dragged her nails down his back, tugging his shirt off as they reached the bed. It fell away. He looked at her, really looked, and then he lowered her onto the mattress like she was something fragile, something treasured. "Tell me to stop," he whispered, hovering above her. "No," she breathed. "I want you to remember this." "Remember what?" "That I didn't beg." He smiled. Dark, a little broken. Then his lips claimed hers again. His mouth trailed fire down her body. His hands worshipped her like he'd waited lifetimes. He didn't rush, didn't command. He explored, listened, responded. She moaned when he kissed the inside of her thigh, her hands tangled in his hair, and when he finally pushed into her, slow, deep, firm, her whole body arched like she'd been waiting for this exact moment since the day they met. He held her hips. She rolled against him, met his thrusts with a rhythm that made his breath catch. And when she flipped him, took the lead, he let her, gladly. His hands stayed on her thighs, his eyes never breaking from hers as she rode him slow, deep, deliberate. "You don't vanish after this," she said, panting. His voice was hoarse. "I won't. You stay. You hold me. I will." Her body trembled. His did too. And together, they shattered. After, he didn't run, didn't hide. He laid there, arms around her, lips brushing her shoulder, heartbeat steadying against hers. Noah closed her eyes. For the first time since the wedding, she slept peacefully. And he stayed. By the third morning, the warmth in the bed had faded. Again. The spot where he slept, gone cold. No message, no trace. No explanation. Noah lay still, staring at the ceiling. The memory of his voice still echoed between her thighs. The way he held her, kissed her, the way he whispered promises between breaths. But promises meant nothing when they vanished before sunlight. She sat up, sheet sliding off her shoulder, pulled her robe around her and stood. She didn't cry, didn't wait. She just walked to the window, stared down at the city she used to dream about, and whispered to herself. He stayed gone the rest of that day, and the next. She didn't call, didn't text. She wouldn't chase a man who couldn't even stay for breakfast. She cooked her own meals, wore her boldest dresses, sketched in the sunroom with music blasting and the balcony doors wide open. She left her favorite red bra on the back of a chair in the living room, left the scent of her perfume on his pillows. She wanted him to see it all, to feel what absence really meant. On the third day, she walked into the dining room and noticed something new. The vase in the center of the table was filled with calla lilies, her mother's favorite flower. No note, no signature, just flowers. A weak gesture from a man who didn't know how to speak. She didn't touch them, didn't move them. She just left them there, like the tension they represented. That night, she stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows in her suite, wearing the same robe he'd peeled off her days ago. She whispered to her reflection, "You can't keep building palaces with a man who only knows how to disappear." Then she turned, walked to the closet, and began packing. She didn't take much, just what she came with. Her journal, 2 changes of clothes, her savings card. She slid her old denim jacket over her shoulders, stared at the room one last time, and left. No message, no dramatic scene, just an empty suite and a front door left unlocked. She didn't need him to find a note. She needed him to feel the lack of her. She didn't go far. A friend from design school offered her a couch in Harlem. Noah accepted with a nod and a tired smile. The apartment was small, loud, a bit messy, and exactly what she needed. There, she laughed again, breathed again, created again, and with each hour away from Dorian, the heaviness inside her started to dissolve. Her friend handed her a sketch pad. "You've got your edge back." Noah smiled. Not a sad smile, not a tired one, a real one. "Maybe I was never meant to be somebody's transaction." Her friend grinned. "Girl, you were always meant to be the whole damn brand." Meanwhile, at the penthouse, he unraveled. The first night, he came home late, expected to see her in the robe, in the bed, in the space she'd made feel alive. But it was quiet, the sheets untouched, the air stale, her perfume gone. He checked the sunroom. No music, no sketches, no laughter. He checked the fridge. No coffee brewing, no sign of her breakfast ritual. And then, it hit him. She was gone. He didn't sleep, didn't eat. His meetings the next morning were disasters. Investors asked questions he couldn't answer. His assistant asked if he was okay. He said yes, but his eyes said everything's missing. On the third day, he canceled all appearances, sat alone in his office, staring at one of her sketches still pinned to the corkboard. A jacket design, strong shoulders, sharp edges, soft seams, just like her. He touched the corner of the page and whispered her name like a prayer. That night, he drove. Nowhere in particular, until his car stopped itself in front of a brownstone in Harlem. He didn't call ahead, didn't send a driver, just waited outside, head against the window, eyes tired, soul wrecked. And when Noah finally stepped out of the building, bundled in an oversized hoodie and denim, he stepped onto the sidewalk like he'd just surfaced from deep water. She stopped cold, looked at him, not shocked, just ready. "You're 18 hours early," she said. His throat worked. "You were counting?" "I was deciding." A long beat. Then he asked, voice low, "And?" "That depends." "On what?" She looked him straight in the eye. "Are you done hiding?" He stepped closer. "I'm done losing." Then he sank to one knee. No ring, no theatrics, just raw, unfiltered truth. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm asking for the chance to learn how to love you right." Her lips parted. She bent down slightly. "I'm not fragile, Dorian." "I know. I don't want grand gestures. I want presence." He nodded, throat tight. "Then give me one more shot." She reached down, took his hand. I'll give you one. One. And if you disappear again? I won't. You'd better not, she whispered. Because if you do, I won't come back next time. He rose, took both her hands, and this time, he didn't let go. Hello, my beautiful and amazing family. If you are still watching, if you are still here with me, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed yet, please don't forget. Also give this video a thumbs up as we dive into the most intense part of the story. It began in the boardroom, a place where Dorian Rise was usually untouchable. He sat at the head of the table, posture sharp, jaw locked, but his eyes didn't track the numbers on the screen. His mind wasn't on market trends or shareholder returns. It was on her, Noah, her laugh echoing faintly in his memory, her body curled up in his shirt on the rooftop, her sketches, her silence. His CFO was speaking, but the words didn't land. And third quarter revenue will fall short unless… Mr. Rise? He blinked. Everyone was staring. He stood up. Meeting adjourned. But, I said. His voice cut through the air like glass. Adjourned. Silence. Then shuffling chairs. No one dared question him. But once outside, the murmurs began. He skipped the next meeting. Then another. By the third cancellation, his assistant knocked on his office door. Sir, the investors are asking questions. You've missed… I'm aware. He didn't look up. Didn't move. Just sat in his chair, staring at her jacket sketch taped to the inside of his drawer. He whispered under his breath, Why did I let you go? His assistant hesitated. Would you like me to reschedule your week? No. Would you like me to notify legal? No. Would you like coffee? He finally looked up, eyes hollow, voice flat. Quit. She blinked. Sir, you can quit, or you can stay. I don't care. A pause. Then she nodded once and left without another word. The door clicked shut. He was alone again. At home, the penthouse was worse. Quiet, sterile, lifeless. He wandered from room to room, her scent fading. No music playing, no laughter, no mess. Just the empty bed, the unused balcony, the calla lilies now wilted on the table. By the third day, he stopped shaving. By the fourth, he stopped speaking to anyone at all. He sat on the edge of her side of the bed, staring at the photo she'd left on the dresser. Not of them, of her mother. She'd said once that her mother taught her how to stand tall, even when the world tried to fold her in half. He was the world, and he'd done exactly that. He closed his eyes, leaned forward, and whispered into the emptiness, I don't know how to be loved, but I want to learn. He started writing, not for business, but for her. A letter, then a second, then 3 more, none of them perfect, none of them mailed. They lived in a folder on his nightstand, ink-stained and rewritten 100 times over. He didn't know how to ask for forgiveness, but he knew how to beg for one more chance. By the 5th night, he drove. He didn't plan it. He didn't bring security. He just took the car and drove, until he found himself in Harlem, parked outside her friend's building, waiting. No music, no headlights, no plan, just heartache and a man who finally understood what it meant to lose. When she appeared, hoodie on, head down, bag in hand, he stepped out like a man chasing sunlight in the middle of winter. She froze. He didn't speak, just looked at her, looked like he felt her, every inch, every memory, every regret. You waited, she said, voice quiet. He nodded. I didn't know what else to do. She stared at him for a long time, then turned to walk past. He stepped into her path. I'm not here to beg, he said. She lifted a brow. No, no, I'm here because without you, none of this means anything. A pause. He took a breath. I thought control kept me safe. I thought detachment made me strong. But I was wrong. Another breath. I didn't lose my wife. I lost the only person who ever made me want to become a man. She didn't answer right away. Just looked at him. Not with hate, not even with pity, with clarity. And after a long moment, she said, You don't get to show up and rewrite the past. I know, but you can try to rewrite what comes next. He nodded. Then come find me when you're ready to be seen, Dorian. Not admired, not obeyed, seen. Then she walked past him. And this time, he didn't chase. He waited, because now he understood. The only kind of love worth earning was the kind that refused to be bought. 6 days. That's how long it took for her to stop expecting the knock, for her heart to stop leaping every time someone buzzed the apartment, for her to stop wondering if he'd show up. Until today, the knock came at exactly 6:12 p.m., soft, almost hesitant. Noah looked up from the couch where she'd been sketching beside her friend's sleeping cat. She didn't move at first, just sat there, staring at the door like it had betrayed her. Another knock. Same rhythm, same restraint. She stood, slowly, walked to the door, paused, breathed in, then opened it. He stood there in a black hoodie, jeans, no security, no entourage. Just Dorian, eyes darker than she remembered, hair slightly messier, jaw covered in stubble. He looked exhausted and human. Noah said nothing. She leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed over her chest. He met her gaze, didn't look away. "I didn't bring flowers," he said, voice quiet. "Good. I didn't bring apologies either, not the kind you deserve anyway." She raised a brow. "Then what did you bring?" He exhaled. Clarity. A pause. She didn't fill it, so he continued. "I've had everything. Money, power, control. None of it made me feel anything. Not until you." Still, she didn't respond. "I kept disappearing because I thought love was a trap, that if I let someone close, they'd hollow me out." He stepped closer. "But you didn't hollow me out, Noah. You woke me up." Her fingers twitched against her arm. "I didn't want to fix you," she said, tone firm. "I know. I just wanted honesty. You'll have it, all of it." Another beat passed. Then she asked, softly, "Why now?" His answer was immediate. "Because 6 days without you felt longer than the last 6 years of my life." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, offered it to her. She hesitated, then took it, unfolded it. "Read." It wasn't poetry. It wasn't polished. It was raw handwriting and ink blotches and crossed out lines. It was a list. All the things he remembered about her. "You like cinnamon in your coffee. You hum when you sketch. You leave your shoes by the door but your earrings everywhere. You talk to your mother's picture like she's still here. You flinch when someone leaves without saying goodbye. You wear red when you want to be seen. You wore red for me, and I disappeared anyway." Her throat tightened. He watched her, carefully. "I don't want to be the man who leaves anymore." A long silence. Then she folded the paper slowly and slipped it into her pocket. "You're 18 hours early." He blinked. "You were counting?" "I was deciding." He stepped closer. "And?" "That depends." "On what?" She looked him dead in the eye. "Are you here to love me, or just win me?" "I'm here to learn you, and what if I say no? Then I'll still be here tomorrow." She stared at him for a long moment, then stepped outside, pulling the door closed behind her. She didn't invite him in. She didn't kiss him, but she didn't walk away either. Instead, she walked beside him, down the stairs, onto the street, like they had something to build. From the ground, they ended up walking 6 blocks without speaking. At a street vendor, she bought them roasted peanuts. He paid in cash. They ate in silence, comfortable, unhurried. By the time they reached the old park at the end of the block, dusk had turned the sky to gold. Noah stopped at a bench, sat. Dorian followed. She looked over at him, finally asked, "Why me?" He didn't hesitate. "Because you're the only thing I've ever wanted that I didn't create." That landed. She turned her head, met his gaze. "You have one shot, Dorian." He nodded. "I know. One." "Understood. No conditions, no contracts, no disappearing." "I stay." She studied him, then bent low, eyes locked to his. "Don't make me regret it." He swallowed. "I won't." Held out her hand. He took it. And this time, she didn't let go either. The door to the penthouse clicked open. But this time, Noah didn't hesitate before walking through. She wasn't a guest. She wasn't someone bought. She wasn't waiting to be claimed. She was here because she chose to be. And Dorian? He followed behind her, not leading, not commanding, just present. A man who'd finally realized power meant nothing without purpose. The space hadn't changed, but something in the air had. She walked straight to the dining table, dropped her purse onto it, and said clearly, "If I stay here, things change." Dorian stood at the edge of the room, watching her like a man watching his future take shape. "I don't want a wife in a glass case," she continued. "I want a life, and if I don't feel like I have one here, I'll leave again. No drama. Just truth." He nodded slowly. "Then build it. This space is yours too." Her eyes didn't soften. "Not yet. You don't touch me unless I invite it. I won't. You don't control what I wear, who I talk to, or how I work. I wouldn't dare. You listen when I speak. You don't wait for me to finish so you can have your say. You hear me? I want to." A pause. Then she took a breath. "And if we ever make love again, it'll be because I want you, not because the contract says I belong in your bed." He stepped forward, slowly, gently, his voice low. "Noah, everything about you is a choice." She tilted her head. "Then show me. Don't say it." He did. He joined her for dinner that night, not across the table, beside her. She served the food, homemade, spicy, real. He tried every dish, asked questions, listened when she talked about flavors she remembered from childhood, stories of burnt rice and second tries, how her mom taught her that food was never just food, it was love. He didn't check his phone once, didn't look at the time. Later, they sat in the living room, her sketch pad in her lap, his hand wrapped around a glass of scotch. She flipped a page, showed him a design. "Tell me what you see." He looked carefully. A jacket, strong lines, asymmetrical shoulders, soft on the inside. Her brow lifted. "Go on." He smiled. "Looks like armor that's safe to take off." She blinked. And then she smiled too. They didn't touch that night. He slept in his room. She slept in hers. But the air between them? Charged, not with avoidance, with patience and promise. The next morning, he brought her tea. Didn't wake her, just left it on her nightstand with a small folded note. "I'll be in the study if you want to talk." No pressure, just presence. She read it before her eyes were fully open, and smiled into her pillow. They worked side by side that day. Her sketching, him responding to emails and restructuring internal policy memos for his company's philanthropic branch. She caught him reading one of her fashion books. He didn't pretend to understand everything, but he asked. That mattered more. By the third evening, it was her who walked into his room. Hair loose, wearing an oversized t-shirt and socks. No makeup, no announcement. She just stood in the doorway until he looked up. He froze, waited. She crossed the floor slowly, stopped in front of him, and crawled onto the bed, on top of the covers, straddling him, knees pressed to his hips. He didn't reach for her, didn't move a muscle. She cupped his jaw. "I lead this time." He nodded, silent, open. And when she kissed him, it was slow, deliberate, soft at first, then deeper, more certain. Her hands explored his chest, then slid up to his shoulders. She didn't rush, didn't dominate. She guided. He groaned softly into her mouth, letting her take her time. When she whispered, "Touch me," he obeyed, carefully, attentively, his palms learning her again like a map he wanted to memorize. They undressed each other in pauses, in glances, in trust. When he was beneath her, he reached up and gently brushed her hair from her face. "You're beautiful when you're angry," he whispered. She smiled. "I'm not angry. No, I'm in control." He pulled her down, forehead to forehead. "Then I'm exactly where I want to be." They made love like it was a conversation, a back and forth of lips, hands, gasps, and trust. Noah moved like a woman who finally knew her own rhythm, and Dorian followed like a man grateful just to feel it. When she came, she did it with her hands on his chest and her name on his lips. When he followed, he wrapped his arms around her and whispered, "Thank you." Not because she gave him her body, but because she gave him a chance. After, she stayed in his arms, and he held her, not as a possession, as a partner. The morning air inside the penthouse was warm and still. Golden sunlight filtered through the glass panels, stretching across the white bedsheets where Noah lay, her back to Dorian's chest, his arms wrapped tightly around her waist. They hadn't said a word yet. They didn't need to. His fingers slowly traced her side, drawing invisible lines down her rib cage, then circling just above her hip bone. Her breath deepened with each stroke. "You're awake," she murmured. He kissed the back of her neck, lips soft, slow. "I've been watching you breathe." She smiled into the pillow. Creepy. Captivated. He rolled her gently onto her back, hovering over her now, eyes dark and heavy-lidded. "Do I have your permission?" he asked, voice low, husky. She reached up, brushing a lock of hair off his forehead. "I invited you here, didn't I?" They kissed like it was the first morning of their first real life. No titles, no contracts, just heat, and need, and choice. He started at her collarbone, his lips pressing reverent kisses down the path they'd traveled before, but this time slower, savoring her like a man who no longer wanted to conquer, only experience. She moaned softly, arching her neck, giving him more. Her legs parted for him without request. He moved between them like a man with a vow to fulfill, not one written in ink, but in touch. He kissed her thighs, trailed his tongue along her skin, and smiled when she whimpered. "I miss this," she whispered, breath hot against his cheek. "I missed you." His mouth returned to her, and when he touched her, softly at first, then with focused pressure, her entire body trembled beneath him. "No one's ever—" She gasped, her fingers tightening in his hair. "No one ever listened," he finished. And he did. Every movement, every moan, every breath. He responded to all of it, as if her body were speaking its own language and he'd finally learned how to understand it. She reached for him, pulled him up, kissed him deeply, tasting herself on his tongue. Then she flipped him onto his back, straddling his waist, her hair spilling around them like a curtain. "My turn." She took control without hesitation. Her hips rolled with slow intention, teasing him, testing how long he could last. He gripped the sheets, teeth clenched. "Noah." "Say it," she whispered, grinding just enough to make him groan. "I'm yours." She leaned down, brushing her lips along his jaw. "Damn right." When she finally took him in, inch by inch, she didn't rush. She wanted to feel every second of him filling her, stretching her, becoming one with her body. His eyes fluttered closed. His hands slid up her thighs, gripping gently. She rode him with rhythm, fluid, erotic, confident. He tried to hold back, but she knew his breaking point. She kissed him again, and whispered, "Come with me." And they did, together. A breathless, pulsing collapse that left them tangled and gasping, his arms locked around her, her head buried in his neck. They stayed that way for a long time, sticky, sweaty, smiling. "Are you planning to make me late to work again?" He mumbled against her hair. "Obviously." He laughed, low and full, the sound vibrating through her. "I don't care," he said. "Let them wait." She nuzzled closer. "Then let's give them something to really wait for." That afternoon, he kissed her in the kitchen while she stirred pasta. Not quick kisses, deep ones, hungry ones. He lifted her onto the counter and slid her panties off with one hand while her sauce bubbled behind them. They never made it to lunch. Later, in the study, she sat on the edge of his desk showing him a new collection sketch. He traced the hemline with his fingertip, then slipped it beneath her skirt and made her moan against the wood-paneled walls while her designs fluttered to the floor. In the library, he bent her over the arm of the velvet reading chair, worshipping her spine with open-mouthed kisses while she whispered his name over and over again. Every space became theirs, not as a display of dominance, but of belonging, of joy. But no moment hit deeper than that night as they lay under a blanket on the balcony. Stars overhead, city below, nothing between them but breath and heartbeat. She was tucked against his chest, a soft cotton tee barely covering her skin. He brushed a thumb across her cheek. "You changed everything," he said softly. She looked up at him, eyes glowing. "No, I just reminded you that you were allowed to feel." He nodded, his throat tight. "And now I feel you. Always." They didn't make love that night like they had before. They just held each other, tangled, content, and still burning. The morning was quiet. Noah stood barefoot in the sunroom, sketchbook in hand, charcoal smudges on her fingers. The light poured through the tall glass, washing her in gold as she bent over the table, focused and lost in her rhythm. She didn't notice Dorian walk in, didn't hear him stop in the doorway, arms crossed as he watched her draw with that fierce, focused expression that always made him forget everything else. She bit her lip as she adjusted a hemline on her latest design. That tiny movement made his chest tighten. She was art, not because of her body, though God he worshipped it, but because of her being, focused, free. Herself. He cleared his throat. She looked up. Hey. Hey. His eyes flicked to her page. Is that the one you were reworking last night? Yeah. She turned it around to show him. I fixed the shoulder line. It wasn't balanced before. Now it falls cleaner against the body. He stepped forward, studying the design. His fingers hovered above the paper, not touching. You really see it all before it exists. She smiled softly. That's the only way it exists. He stared at her, and then said, Put on something nice. She blinked. Why? Because you're coming with me. 30 minutes later, she was dressed in a black wrap dress and heels that made her legs look like poetry. Hair pulled into a soft knot. Gold hoops in her ears. Dorian wore a dark gray suit with the collar slightly open, no tie. He drove. Didn't say much. Just held her hand the entire ride. The car pulled up in front of a narrow building nestled between two boutiques in Soho. The windows were tall, clean. The door was glass and black iron. The sign above was blank. Noah stepped out, confused. He led her to the door. Used a key. Opened it. Led her inside. The space was bright. Empty. Wooden floors. Sunlight streaming in from a skylight above. Minimalist lighting. Exposed brick walls. And at the far end, a clean white wall with soft gold lettering already painted near the top. Lennox, Atelier. Noah froze. Her heart slammed into her ribs. She turned to him. What is this? He stepped behind her, hands sliding gently to her waist. It's yours. She spun around. Dorian. I bought the lease, paid 6 months in advance, renovated the plumbing, secured the business permit under your name, registered the brand. You'll need to hire your own team. But the space, the light, the name. His eyes softened. They're already waiting. She stared at him, stunned. He smiled. You didn't think I was going to let all that talent waste away on sketchbooks, did you? Her throat tightened. This isn't a gift. No, it's more than that. He nodded. It's belief. Tears touched the edges of her lashes. She tried to blink them back, failed. I don't have the words. He stepped close, cupping her face. Then just start building, and let the world find the words in your work. They walked the space together, hand in hand. She pointed out where she'd place her design tables, the fabric racks, the mirrors, the mood boards. He didn't try to control any of it, just watched her light up, listened, asked thoughtful questions, took notes. When she talked about hosting her first showcase, he smiled like he could already see it happening. When she mentioned maybe naming a collection after her mother, he nodded, voice quiet. She'd be proud. Noah touched her chest. And for the first time since the marriage began, she felt home. That night, they celebrated, not at a 5-star restaurant, not with investors or press, just the two of them, on the penthouse terrace, takeout from her favorite Dominican spot, a bottle of wine, music playing low from her phone speaker. He danced with her under the stars, one hand on her lower back, the other in her curls. You feel lighter, he whispered. She smiled. I am. Then she leaned in, lips brushing his ear. And tonight, I'm going to thank you the only way you deserve. They didn't make it to the bedroom. He carried her into the study, laid her down on the leather couch, and kissed every inch of her body like she was sacred ground. Her legs wrapped around his waist. Her moans filled the quiet. It wasn't about possession. It wasn't even about release. It was devotion, raw, honest, earned. After, they lay tangled on the floor, skin to skin, breath mingling. She traced lazy circles on his chest. You really think I can do this? He looked down at her, utterly serious. I think you were born to. She swallowed, then kissed him softly. I think I finally believe that too. The leaves had just begun to turn. A soft rust-colored edge kissed the trees outside the penthouse windows, and the mornings had started to carry a chill that begged for sweaters, tea, and lingering in bed. It had been 11 months. Noah counted, but she never said it out loud. Not once. She waited, not with dread, not with fear, but with a quiet tension coiled in the base of her spine. Because the clause loomed, that unspoken sentence buried in the original contract, the 1-year reevaluation. She hadn't read the papers in months. They were tucked in the back of her closet in a leather folder she hadn't opened since the day she packed her old bag and walked out. Now, she lived with him. Loved with him. And yet, Part of her still waited for the floor to shift. He hadn't brought it up. Not once. Not even when they had dinner with partners. Not when they walked past the courthouse where they'd signed it all into place. Not even when they slow danced in the kitchen to a song from a playlist she didn't know he'd made just for her. But still, it lingered, like fog at the edge of a clear sky. The afternoon sun poured into the penthouse as she sat on the terrace, sketching a new set of designs. A capsule line for women who'd lost everything and built something new. Every piece had a name. Resilience. Voice. Unbroken. Begin. Dorian came out with 2 mugs of tea, set hers down, sat beside her, watched the wind pull gently at the curls escaping her bun. She didn't speak, neither did he, until he reached into his blazer and placed a small velvet box on her sketch pad. Her pencil froze. She looked at it, then him. "What is this?" she asked, voice low. "Something overdue. No contracts? No. No stipulations? None." She picked it up slowly, opened it. Inside was a platinum ring. Simple, clean, elegant. No diamonds, no excess, just meaning. Beside it, folded neatly in the box, was a tiny slip of paper, handwritten. This time, no deals, just devotion. Her breath caught. She stared at the note. At the ring, then at him. "I don't understand," she whispered. He took her hand, brought it to his chest. "I don't want to renew anything. I don't want to revise terms. I want to let go of every rule I thought would keep me safe." He paused, then said, "I want to love you without a deadline. I want to stay, not because I promised, but because I can't imagine not waking up beside you every day." Her throat tightened. "Noah," he said, "I love you, not because I married you, but because you became the first place I ever felt like I belonged." Tears threatened, hot and sudden. She looked away. "You should have told me sooner. I didn't know how." "And now?" He touched her face gently. "Now I'm not asking for an answer. I'm offering mine." She opened her palm, picked up the ring, slid it onto her finger, slowly, deliberately, then leaned forward, pressed her lips to his. Soft, slow, steady. When they pulled apart, she whispered against his lips, "Then this time, we start on my terms." They made love that night like it was a promise. Not rushed, not wild, but sacred. Clothes fell away in silence. Bodies came together like gravity had waited for permission. He held her like she was his reason to breathe. She whispered his name like it was the only language she remembered. They moved slow, deep, locked in eye contact that said everything. And when they reached the edge together, shuddering, clinging, trembling, there was no more fear, no more contracts, only love. And choice. Later, they lay tangled under the sheets, limbs wrapped, breath mingling. Outside, the city pulsed quietly below them. Inside, there was stillness. Peace. "Noah? Do you believe in fate?" She looked up at him. "No." He smiled faintly. "Me neither." Then she kissed his chest and whispered, "But I believe in us." The mornings looked different now. There was no tension when Noah woke, no wondering whether he'd still be there. Dorian was always there now, curled around her, or already in the kitchen, brewing coffee and humming off-key to a playlist she'd built just for mornings like this. Warm, unhurried, filled with sun and scent and silence that felt good. She padded out one morning in his old t-shirt, her hair wild, her body sore in all the best ways. He looked up from the espresso machine, eyes lighting up. "Muffin? You made muffins?" He held one up. "Baked them myself." She blinked. "You? Dorian Rise, billionaire non-baker, made breakfast?" "I YouTubed it." "You what?" "Turns out," he said, placing the muffin gently on a plate, "I'm a man of many talents." She walked over, grabbed the plate, and kissed him slow. "You're a man in love." That too. The rhythm of their life became soft and sure. Noah worked at her new studio most days, her staff growing, her vision sharpening. She hosted fittings for women who thought their bodies were too different, too bruised, too unworthy. They left with clothes tailored to their spirits. Dorian sometimes stopped by, quietly, respectfully. He'd bring her favorite snacks, or quietly sit in the back of the room while she measured seams and pinned fabric. He didn't interfere. He supported, watched her build something real from what once felt like nothing. At home, their nights were sacred. Sometimes it was slow dancing in the kitchen, bare feet, half-full wine glasses and mouths pressed together between sips. Other times, it was wild kisses against hallway walls, his hands on her hips, her laugh echoing down the marble stairs. One night, they made love on the piano bench. It started with her showing him a melody she wrote, ended with his hands under her dress, her lips parting against his neck, and her gasp swallowed by music that never quite got finished. They visited her mother's grave together in the fall. Dorian held her hand the entire time. He never said anything, just stood with her, letting her speak to the woman she missed every day. When she cried, he didn't fix it. He just held her. That was enough. One evening, while sorting through old photos, Noah found a picture of herself, age 16, standing next to a mannequin wearing one of her earliest designs. She was smiling, hopeful, naive maybe, but fierce. She showed it to Dorian. He stared at the picture for a long time, then said, "That's the girl I married." She arched a brow. "Really? You mean the girl you forced into a contract?" "No," he said. "The girl who made me earn her." She leaned in, voice soft. "And the man you became is worth every step." He started therapy. His idea. Quietly at first. 1 session a week. She never pushed, never pried, but she noticed the difference. His tone, his touch, the way he started opening up about his past. He told her about his childhood, the loneliness, the pressure, the silence that taught him to armor up before he could even speak clearly. And she listened. No fixing, just presence. They hosted their first fundraiser together, a fashion and tech collab for at-risk youth. She designed the show. He funded the grants. They didn't pose for cameras. They posed for the girls she mentored. And when one of them hugged her after the show and said, "You made me feel seen," Dorian looked away, because his throat was too tight to speak. Later that night, he kissed every inch of her body like a man worshiping a home he never thought he'd have. Not rushed, not frantic, just reverent, grateful, whole. They no longer slept in separate rooms, their clothes mixed in drawers. Her lipstick lived in his car's glove box. His cufflinks were scattered between her hairpins. They were woven now, not because of obligation, but because of choice. The stage was wide, sleek, flooded with warm, intentional light. Noah stood at its center, framed by a simple white backdrop and the soft gleam of the words projected behind her. Women who lead, from silence to power. The audience was full. Rows of powerful women, young dreamers, corporate executives, survivors. Her palms were damp as she gripped the lapel of her custom-designed suit, a bone-colored blazer that fell elegantly over a fitted black jumpsuit. She had chosen it carefully, soft where she wanted comfort, sharp where she wanted command. In the front row, Dorian sat with his elbows on his knees, chin resting on one hand, watching her like she was the only thing that existed in the world. She took a breath and began. "I didn't come from a legacy of power." Her voice was calm, steady. "I didn't inherit a family name that opened doors. I wasn't born into boardrooms or groomed to lead." A pause. "I was raised by a nurse who worked double shifts and made miracles from grocery store leftovers. She taught me how to sew my own dresses when I couldn't afford new ones. She also taught me that survival isn't the same as living." Soft murmurs in the crowd. Heads nodded. Noah continued. "I thought getting into college on scholarship meant I was finally winning, until one signature error took it all away, until one hospital bill shattered the illusion that hard work was enough." She exhaled slowly. "I got married to save my mother's life, not out of love, not out of choice, but desperation." A hush fell over the room. "But that decision led me to something else, something I never expected myself." She stepped forward slightly. "I was treated like a transaction, like a name on a contract. I lived in a penthouse I didn't choose, beside a man I barely knew, under a last name that wasn't mine until I signed the dotted line." Another beat. "And then, I could have stayed invisible, silent, comfortable in someone else's world. But I didn't. I turned his dining table into a design studio. I turned my silence into a sketchbook, and one day, when I'd had enough of disappearing, I left, not because I hated him, but because I loved me." The crowd sat still, riveted. "And when I came back, it wasn't to submit. It was to rise." Her gaze drifted briefly to the front row. Dorian didn't smile. He looked wrecked, in awe, moved. "I stand here today," Noah said, lifting her chin, "as the founder of Lennox Atelier, a fashion house that designs for women rebuilding their lives, survivors, fighters, women who refuse to be reduced to what happened to them." Applause began to build. She raised her voice slightly. "We dress our clients not to hide, but to declare, to take up space, to feel seen. And today, I am not just a designer. I am not just someone's wife. I am whole." The crowd rose. Applause thundered. But Noah's eyes only searched for one person. When they met Dorian's, he was already on his feet, clapping hard, eyes shining. She smiled through the emotion rising in her chest, then bowed her head, and walked off stage. Backstage, she barely made it behind the curtain before strong arms wrapped around her. Dorian pressed her close, forehead resting on hers. "You didn't just speak," he whispered. "You roared." She exhaled shakily. "I was terrified. You were flawless." She looked up at him. "Did I go too far?" "You didn't go far enough." She kissed him, soft and slow, filled with the energy of release. He tasted like pride, like safety, like home. That night, she didn't take off her jumpsuit right away. She wore it to dinner, to the rooftop, to the quiet corner of the library where he slid behind her and unzipped it slowly, reverently. "You stood on that stage," he whispered, and all I could think was, "That's who I married." She turned in his arms. "No. This is who you grew beside." They didn't rush. They undressed each other piece by piece, like unwrapping a story they'd already read but wanted to feel again. He laid her down on the couch, traced her collarbone with his tongue, held her like she was fragile, then reminded her how strong she was with every kiss. When he slid into her, she gasped, not because it was new, but because it still mattered. Every time, every time. Later, tangled in a throw blanket, they watched her speech replay online. It had already gone viral. Comments poured in, women around the world thanking her for her honesty, sharing their own stories, sisters, daughters, wives, all saying, "Me too." She looked at the screen, then at him, then whispered, "You gave me the room." He shook his head. "You built the door." The sun was sinking over Manhattan. From the penthouse terrace, the sky looked like it had been dipped in fire, molten orange, soft pinks, deepening shades of indigo stretching far beyond the skyline. Noah stood by the edge of the railing, her arms folded over her chest, sipping from a glass of wine. Barefoot, thoughtful, wrapped in a light cardigan in the silence of the hour, Dorian stepped out behind her. No words, just the sound of the sliding door and the shift of his weight as he moved to her side. She didn't look at him, just asked, "Do you remember what tonight is?" He smiled faintly. "I remember everything." She finally turned. "You didn't need to plan anything." "I didn't." He held up a simple black box. "No rings, no pressure. Just one last thing I want to give you." She raised a brow, curious. He opened it. Inside wasn't jewelry. It was a folded page, the original marriage contract. Torn clean down the center, burned at the edges. She blinked. "I thought you shredded it." "I wanted to keep it," he said softly, as a reminder of where we started. She swallowed. "And now, and I don't need reminders anymore." He handed her the paper. She took it, stared at it, felt everything that moment represented, control, pain, necessity, shame, and let it pass. Then, without hesitation, she walked over to the fire pit, lit the torn page, and watched the ashes rise. They sat together in silence, cross-legged on a throw blanket under the soft glow of the terrace lights. He poured her another glass of wine. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I never imagined this," she said quietly. "This? Peace." He kissed her hair. "You built it?" "No," she whispered. "We did." A beat of silence passed. Then she reached into her cardigan, pocket, and pulled out a small slip of paper. Folded once. He raised an eyebrow. She handed it to him. He unfolded it. His eyes scanned the handwriting. It was a vow, one she'd written herself. "I don't promise to be perfect. I don't promise to never argue or cry or lose myself again. But I promise to come back, to stay soft when the world tries to harden me, to hold you without holding you back, and to choose you On the hard days, on the quiet ones, when love feels easy, and especially when it doesn't. He looked up, eyes glassy. No prenup, she whispered. But I thought this might count as something more permanent. He set the paper down, took her face in his hands, and kissed her like she was the answer to every question he'd ever been afraid to ask. Later that night, they lay in bed, naked, tangled, not out of passion but peace. Their limbs wrapped like ivy, their breath sinking without trying. You okay? He whispered. Yeah. Happy? She looked up at him, grinned. Let's just say if this is the last chapter, I'm glad I didn't put the book down too early. He laughed, soft, real, deep in his chest. And then she reached up, took his hand, placed it over her heart, and said, now hold this like it's yours. He did. They made love again, slow, unrushed, full of pauses and gasps and knowing looks. There was no rush to finish, no need to prove anything. It was about presence, the brush of lips, the press of bodies, the slow rocking rhythm of two people who had nothing left to hide. When she came, she cried, not from pain, from fullness, from release, from the feeling of being held. When he followed, it was with her name on his lips and his forehead pressed to hers. And when it was over, they didn't speak, didn't move, just breathed, together. Morning found them still wrapped in each other, sheets tangled, curtains open, the light warm and unbothered. Dorian stirred first, pressed a kiss to her shoulder. Noah sighed softly, eyes still closed, then whispered, don't leave. He smiled. I don't even know how anymore. Downstairs, her sketchbook waited. His laptop sat unopened. Their lives would resume, calls, meetings, fittings, deadlines, but not yet. Because this moment, this quiet, this was the vow. No ink, no contract, no signatures, just skin, breath, love. And just like that, the woman once sold into silence became the author of her own story. Noah didn't just find love, she rebuilt it. On her terms, in her time, without permission. What started as a cold transaction became the warmest kind of home. A home filled with passion, partnership, growth, and eventually the softest miracle of all. 9 months after that final vow beneath the fire-streaked sky, Noah gave birth to a daughter. A baby girl with her mother's eyes and her father's quiet strength. They named her Amara, which means grace born from struggle. And when Dorian held her for the first time, tears slid down his face, not out of fear this time, but from awe, because he finally understood what legacy really meant. It wasn't money. It wasn't power. It was love that lasts beyond the body. A love taught, lived, and passed down. Now, if you felt something in this story, if Noah's strength, or Dorian's change, or their daughter's beautiful beginning touched something in you, please take a second to do something that makes a huge difference, like this video. It tells the algorithm that stories like this matter. Comment below. Tell us what part shook you, what moment healed you, or what line stayed in your chest. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Love and Twilights, because this is just the beginning. We don't just tell stories here. We witness transformations. We craft tales that remind you, you are allowed to start over. You are worthy of love that sees you, truly sees you, and stays. And you are never too broken to build something beautiful again. And if Noah's story gave you hope, then trust me, the next one will make you believe. From all of us at Love and Twilights, thank you for watching. Thank you for feeling. Thank you for choosing stories that mean something. Until next time, stay brave, stay soft, and above all, stay in love. Drop a love in the comments if you stayed until the end. We see you, we appreciate you, and your support keeps us telling the stories that matter most.